So you think you know who your enemies are? You think it's the people who argue with you, the ones who block your path, the ones who openly show their hatred. But those aren't the ones who truly harm you. The most dangerous people in your life aren't loud. They don't announce themselves. They whisper, they smile, they blend in. They make you doubt yourself, not through confrontation, but through corrosion, slowly and quietly. You felt it before, that strange heaviness after a conversation, the anxiety that wasn't there before, the self-doubt that crept in after what seemed like a harmless joke, and the exhaustion, the kind that no amount of rest can fix. That's not life draining you, that's people. But not just any people. Carl Jung spent his life exploring the human soul. He believed the psyche isn't shaped only by trauma, but by proximity. The people around you don't just influence you, they program you. Some personalities act like psychological toxins. They don't just hurt you, they change you. They distort your values, blur your instincts, and pull you away from who you were meant to be. And the danger is, most of them don't even realize it. Because someone doesn't have to be evil to be harmful, they just have to be unconscious. If this feels painfully familiar, maybe it's time to stop rescuing others and you start rescuing yourself. Ask yourself, who's writing your story? And is it time to take the pen back? So here's the question that matters more than any degree or job title. Who do you allow into your psyche? Who gets access to the deepest parts of you? Your attention, your energy, your identity? You might be texting your own erasure. You might be loyal to a slow death. This isn't paranoia. It's psychological hygiene. Jung didn't give us a list of people to avoid. He gave us a mirror, a way to recognize patterns that corrupt from the inside out. He called them archetypes, and some of them, if left unchecked, can dismantle you. So today we're not just talking about toxic people, we're talking about psychological warfare and the silent enemies of your mind. The energy leech. They never stop needing your time, your sympathy, your emotional bandwidth. Their chaos becomes your responsibility. And when you finally step away, you don't feel angry, just drained. Carl calls this more than a flaw. It's a hunger for validation and rescue that becomes your burden to carry until it quietly breaks you. You've met them, the friend who calls only to unload, the co-worker who turns every meeting into therapy, the partner who melts into helplessness when you set a boundary, guilting you into backing down. They survive on your emotional labor, but it's never enough. Why? Because the energy leech is trapped in psychic dependency. They've outsourced their emotional regulation, avoiding their pain by making it yours. And you, kind, empathetic, responsible you, step in hoping this time it'll help. It doesn't. It starts small, a canceled plan, a bite of your tongue, a reshaped schedule, until their emotional storms dictate your world, and they stay oblivious to the cost you pay. They project their insecurities, clinging to you to avoid confronting themselves. But in doing so, they stunt your growth too. And here's the hardest truth. Your help isn't helping. By soothing them, you reinforce helplessness. No one evolves. To break free, reclaim your boundaries, not with cruelty, but with clarity. Ask yourself, do they leave you lighter or heavier? If someone only takes, they're not a friend, they're a thief. Lock the door. The false mirror, the manipulative charmer. They don't attack you, they admire you. They smile at you like you're the most brilliant person they've ever met. They say all the right things at exactly the right time. And that's precisely why you never see them coming. Carl warned us not only of monsters, but of masks. He called it the persona, the carefully constructed version of ourselves we present to the world. But sometimes that mask isn't just self-protection, it's a weapon. And the most dangerous manipulators, they wield charm like a scalpel, The false mirror isn't loud or aggressive. They're magnetic. They sense what you want, praise, recognition, affection, and mirror it back to you. You feel seen, understood, special. But slowly, imperceptibly, you start doing things to keep their approval, to stay in their glow, until one day you're not sure if you're making choices for yourself or for their applause. It begins with flattery, not the innocent kind, but strategic praise designed to lower your guard. Jung believed people who over-rely on the persona become disconnected from their true selves. They learn to perform connection instead of experiencing it. And if you're not careful, you become their audience instead of their equal. These people are often highly intuitive. They study your vulnerabilities like a script. If you fear not being enough, they'll tell you you're the best they've ever met. If you long for attention, they'll flood you with it until they don't. That's when the real control begins, because once you're emotionally invested in their perception of you, they own a part of your identity. You start needing their validation. You second-guess yourself when they go silent. You wonder what you did wrong when the compliments stop, and you try harder, not for growth, but to win them back. It becomes a cycle of addiction where their approval is the drug and you're always chasing the next high. Jung warned that these relationships fracture the psyche because they don't just manipulate your behavior, they manipulate your self-concept. You stop trusting your intuition. You confuse manipulation with connection. You begin to believe that the only version of you that's lovable is the one that pleases them. Modern society is built to reward the persona. Social media thrives on it. Influencers, leaders, even friends sometimes wear curated masks, designed to reflect what others want to see. But Jung's work reminds us, what glitters isn't always gold, and what flatters isn't always truth. To protect yourself, you must learn to listen to how you feel after the admiration fades. Does their support come with strings? Are you free to be imperfect or just performing a role they like? Real relationships are rooted in honesty, not performance. The false mirror shows you a version of yourself you want to believe. But if you look too long, you'll lose sight of who you truly are. And by the time the mask slips, it may already be too late. The wounded ego. They'll never say they're jealous. They won't openly compete. Instead, they'll smile while subtly dismantling you. It starts small. A sarcastic comment when you share a win. A raised eyebrow when you speak with confidence. A harmless joke that hits a little too close to your insecurities. And then comes the disguised advice. Don't get your hopes up. Be realistic. Or the ever dangerous, are you sure you're ready for that? These people don't hate you. They fear you. Jung described a phenomenon called ego inflation, when a person's self-image becomes so fragile and overblown that it cannot bear challenge or comparison. The insecure saboteur lives in this state. Your ambition threatens their illusion of adequacy. Your progress magnifies their inertia. And so they must pull you back, not to hurt you, but to protect their own reflection. But make no mistake, their methods are sharp. The insecure saboteur won't yell or confront. They'll diminish through subtlety, a compliment laced with critique, a delayed reaction to your news, a story of someone who tried and failed in exactly what you're attempting. They mask their sabotage as concern. They wear the costume of the realist, the voice of reason, and worst of all, they often convince you they're right, because deep down, your own fears are listening. When someone close to us doubts our path, we question ourselves, not them. And in doing so, we slow down, dim our light, hold ourselves back, just to remain relatable, just to avoid triggering their discomfort. This is how brilliance dies in the name of harmony. But here's what they won't tell you. Your growth exposes their stagnation, not because you're arrogant, but because you're a mirror, reflecting the roads they didn't take, the dreams they buried, the fears they never faced. And instead of facing themselves, they aim at you. Modern society feeds this cycle. We're conditioned to play small to keep others comfortable. We're told not to brag, to stay humble, to dim the very traits that make us magnetic. Our courage, our originality, our risk-taking. But this humility, when demanded by others, is not virtue, it's submission. Carl believed that true individuation, becoming your full self, requires leaving behind the relationships that keep you stuck. Not with hatred, but with clarity. Not with anger, but with alignment. Ask yourself, who in your life feels uneasy when you level up? Who laughs the loudest when you fail and claps the softest when you succeed? Who tells you to slow down, not because you need to, but because they can't keep up? The insecure saboteur isn't your enemy. They're a warning, a sign that your evolution has begun to disturb stagnant waters. And sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is grow anyway. The moral mask, the sanctimonious judge. They don't need power. They claim to already have it because they're right, morally right, ethically superior, always standing on the correct side of history, culture, or ideology. And if you disagree, you're not just mistaken, you're wrong, dangerous, broken. Jung understood this danger deeply. He believed in the superego, a moral compass formed by society, family, and authority. But when that compass gets hijacked by ego and fear, it becomes something else entirely. A weapon, a throne, a mask. The moral mask isn't interested in truth. They're interested in dominance. But they don't dominate with violence or charisma. They dominate with shame. You've seen it. The friend who constantly points out your problematic opinions, not with the intent to understand, but to humiliate. The co-worker who signals their virtues loudly, what they eat, what they boycott, what they stand for, and subtly implies that if you're not doing the same, you're part of the problem. Or the online stranger who twists a comment into a character assassination, all in the name of being just and good. These people don't argue. They accuse. They don't correct. They condemn. And worst of all, they make you question yourself. That's the power of the moral mask. It doesn't yell, it gaslights. It taps into your deepest need to be seen as good. And when someone suggests, even indirectly, that you've fallen short of that, it triggers a spiral. Guilt, confusion, apologies for things you don't understand, a quiet withdrawal from your own voice. This is the same psychological machinery that powers modern-day cancel culture. Outrage becomes currency, punishment becomes performance, and beneath it all, fear. Fear of being labeled, fear of being exiled, fear of being seen as one of them, whoever they are. But here's the hidden irony. Behind the moral mask is usually insecurity. The sanctimonious judge doesn't enforce morality because they are pure. They enforce it because they are terrified of being wrong. So they stay one step ahead by attacking before they can be attacked. They project their own guilt, shame, or confusion onto you under the banner of righteousness. In truth, no one grows from being shamed. Real moral transformation doesn't come from public spectacle. It comes from private reflection. Carl believed that the path to wholeness isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, integrating your darkness, not hiding behind light. So ask yourself, who are you trying to impress with your goodness? Are you living by your inner values or someone else's approval metrics? Are you learning or just obeying? Because the sanctimonious judge doesn't want your redemption. They want your surrender. And the moment you stop performing, the mask turns cold. In a world obsessed with appearing moral, the real rebellion is to be honest. Not perfect, not performative, just painfully, beautifully real. The chaos magnet. the perpetual victim. They're always hurt, always misunderstood, always at the center of some emotional storm, and somehow it's never their fault. At first you feel compassion, you listen, you support, you want to be the one who finally understands them. But over time, something shifts. You're constantly putting out fires that aren't yours. You're apologizing for things you never did. You walk on eggshells, afraid to upset someone who's perpetually upset. Carl recognized this as more than just a pattern. It's a complex, the victim complex, a psychological loop where a person's suffering becomes their entire identity, not because they enjoy pain, but because pain gives them purpose. It gives them attention, and above all, it gives them power. The chaos magnet doesn't seek resolution. They seek validation of their chaos. Their emotional wounds become currency, tools for control. If you challenge their narrative, you become the villain. If you refuse to save them, you become just like everyone else. Slowly, the relationship stops being mutual. It becomes a trap. They lure you in with vulnerability. Their pain is real, and that's what makes it so convincing. But instead of healing, they spiral. They blame. They dramatize. And you start questioning your own actions. You start adapting your behavior to avoid setting them off. You take responsibility for their emotions, and you lose yourself in the process. This is the manipulative power of victimhood. It's not always conscious, but it's effective. Because empathy, your ability to care deeply, is what they hook into. The more compassionate you are, the more likely you'll be drawn into their orbit. Every interaction is filtered through betrayal, abandonment, injustice. And over time, these individuals become addicted to crisis. Because crisis keeps them relevant. Crisis keeps people around. But there's another danger. You become collateral damage. Their story demands conflict. Their narrative needs a bad guy. And if you refuse to play the hero, or worse, if you suggest they take ownership, they'll rewrite the script. Suddenly, you are cold, unsupportive, toxic. The chaos magnet doesn't just attract drama. They create it. And if you stay too long, you'll find your life revolving around someone else's storms. Your goals will be delayed. Your joy will be compromised, and your peace, gone. Modern culture doesn't always spot this. In a world that values openness about trauma, and rightfully so, there's a fine line between processing pain and weaponizing it. The perpetual victim crosses that line often. They don't seek healing. They seek loyalty to their suffering. And here's the hardest truth. You cannot save them because they don't want to be saved. They want to be seen as wronged, as righteous, as wounded. And that identity is more important than any solution you offer. So ask yourself, are you supporting someone or being swallowed by their story? Because not all storms are weather, some are people. And if you don't leave the wreckage, you become it. The hollow achiever, the prestige addict. They look like they've made it. The title, the recognition, the applause. But behind the polished exterior, something's missing. These are the hollow achievers, individuals addicted to prestige, not purpose. Their worth is built on applause, not authenticity. They're not just successful, they need to be seen as successful. And being around them, it can distort your own compass. You start feeling like you're behind, like your life isn't impressive enough. You begin to mirror their chase, thinking it's yours. That's the danger. Their validation is external. Their goals performative. They trade depth for display and expect you to do the same. And slowly, your joy becomes achievement-driven. Your peace, performance-based. But these achievers aren't villains. They're often deeply insecure, trapped in roles they think they can't escape. They fear irrelevance more than failure. To spot them, look for image obsession, status-driven talk, and a need to always be seen. To avoid becoming them, stay grounded in your values. Create a life that feels good, not just looks good, because prestige might get you claps, but it won't give you clarity. And if you let the world define your worth, don't be surprised when you wake up successful and still feel lost. The shadow in you. Here's a difficult truth. Sometimes the people who hurt you aren't just random. They reflect something hidden within you. The emotional vampire? Maybe you keep giving because you're scared of being seen as selfish. The manipulator? Maybe their praise fills a part of you that's still starving for approval. The constant critic? Maybe they echo the voice you already have in your head. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. You don't just attract these people, you tolerate them, because somewhere along the way, you learn to trade your boundaries for belonging, to keep the peace instead of speaking up, to accept crumbs instead of walking away hungry. But healing isn't just about removing toxic people. It's about asking why you kept them close. What were you afraid of losing? What part of you believed you deserved it? You're not broken. You just got used to dimming yourself. But the moment you turn inward and ask the hard questions, that's when everything begins to shift. You don't just need protection from others. You need permission to stop being the version of you that welcomed them in. And that kind of healing, it changes everything. There comes a point where you have to stop blaming others for how much they've taken from you and start asking why you kept handing it over. Because the truth is, not all damage is loud. Not all wounds bleed. Some of the deepest harm happens slowly, quietly, through people who smile at you while draining your energy. One small compromise at a time. And by the time you realize it, parts of you, your confidence, your creativity, your sense of self, are already missing. This isn't just about cutting out a few bad friends. It's about waking up to patterns. The kind that feel so familiar, you mistake them for love. The kind that leave you doubting yourself more than you doubt them. You know the ones. People who constantly need saving, but never show up for you. People who make you feel small just so they can feel big. People who only love the version of you they can control. But here's the hard part. Sometimes these people aren't strangers. They're close. Family, friends, mentors, partners. And that's what makes it so hard to walk away. Because leaving doesn't just mean changing your environment. It means redefining your identity. It means learning that being available to everyone is not the same as being kind. That saying no isn't cruel. It's necessary. You're not here to be someone else's emotional landfill. You're not here to shrink so others can feel comfortable. You're not here to prove your worth to people who have already decided to overlook it. You're here to grow, to evolve. And anyone who consistently pulls you away from that path is not neutral. They are destructive. It's time to stop asking if people are bad and start asking, what happens to me when I'm around them? Do I leave conversations feeling heavier, smaller, silenced? Or do I feel more alive, more seen, more myself? We protect our phones with passwords, our homes with locks. But what about our minds, our peace, our time? What boundaries have you drawn to keep your inner world safe? This isn't just emotional hygiene, it's survival. Because the wrong people don't just waste your time, they shape your thoughts, they distort your self-image, they turn your potential into a battlefield. So ask yourself genuinely, fearlessly, are the people around me watering my growth, or are they quietly poisoning my roots? And then do what needs to be done, not with anger, not with drama, just with clarity. Because at the end of the day, your peace is not a luxury, it's your foundation. And anyone who threatens that, no matter how familiar, no matter how long they've been around, has to go. Your soul is not a playground. It's time you stopped handing out access to people who only come to burn it down. If this hit home, stick around. Subscribe for more raw, eye-opening content that helps you protect your peace and grow wiser.